Long time no see, darling. How you been?
How are you?
We were here 5 years ago, and we were in a different booth, and we were doing our little Bewitched
right?
Samantha and Darren routine for a couple days. It was
right?
fun.
Remember that?
Dana, let me tell you something right off the bat.
Yes, sir.
I love you walked up to those media folks, you pointed at their eyes, and you said, you are the problem, didn't you?
Yeah.
I loved it.
I saw all of them just kind of assembled back there. And you know what really, just frankly, what really ticked me off is I'm wondering what story is going to come out of this. What story is going to come out of this conference? Because I saw pictures on Twitter and I saw this stuff online. You have like that Richard Spencer guy that got thrown out, this like white nationalist, I don't know who the hell this guy is. He was raised in Highland Park. I mean, for crying out loud, they probably put caviar in his bottle, and he wants to act like he's so oppressed or something. And then all the media starts focusing on this guy. One dude. Right. One guy who is not even anywhere near representative of all of the people here.
And in fact,
that's
it was
what
people
infuriated
here,
me.
They were calling him out. The people here were calling him out.
And they won't write about that.
No, of course
they won't write about that at all. And that's what infuriates
Remember
me.
in the early days of the Tea Party, they were saying the Tea Party's really, really racist. And the problem was they couldn't come up with any signs. They couldn't find any actual Tea Party signs that were racist signs. So these progressives got together and said, well, in order to prove how racist these Tea Party people are, we're going to have to make racist signs, pretend to be members of the Tea Party, and then go and hold them up. And this is I don't even know what to say about this. We're going to manufacture the evidence necessary to make a point of view that simply does not exist.
Exactly.
That's right.
Exactly. And conservatives hold each other up and hold each other accountable.
Yeah, look at Mike Flynn. I mean, he certainly there's nothing he did that struck me as a real national security threat, but he lied to his boss. Gone. Gone. Hillary Clinton takes hundreds of millions of dollars, sells our uranium to the Russians, and puts all of the information in the entire security system of the country is out on a server, and it's on a laptop of a absolute pervert, and nothing, no calls for resignation, nothing.
No, I agree.
Dana, let me ask you. So you did a great job for the NRA and NRATV, and that was to hear the cheers in the room. There's not many places you can go in America today where you hear cheers like that when you talk about guns and gun rights, and it had to be great up there to feel that from the crowd.
Well, and the other thing is I want people to realize that the original big tent is the NRA. I can't tell you how many times I hear it when people call into my radio program, and I know you hear this too, Grant. These are people they're Democrats too. They're not Republicans. They're Democrats. They're atheists. They're gay. They're not what you would think of as the stereotypical NRA member. And there are tons of them out there. But they don't get any attention, anything at all. And it's because the media, it is more convenient for the media if the NRA looks like some elderly white man as opposed to really who all of the people are in the NRA, as opposed to showing all those folks.
Are you calling Bill and I elderly?
No, you aren't elderly.
It's not just.
I mean, like an elderly, like with the posture of like a cocktail shrimp.
Yeah,
elderly.
average age is deceased elderly. It's not like it's convenient for them. It's essential for them. Their entire sales pitch is predicated on the idea of making every single person in the country who has different values than they do. They make them feel that they're the only one left, and that the forces of history are against you, and you're just a dinosaur. You might as well just shut up and kind of wander off into your golden years retirement. Right. And that's why the election of Donald Trump shook these people up so much, because they started reading their own press releases, and all of a sudden it's like, what he got? How many votes?
Yeah. Dana, you've been coming here for a long time. Can you feel the difference this year compared to last?
A little. I mean, I haven't been out on the floor too terribly much, but I feel so. Last year, I felt that people were kind of not so much nervous. They almost felt defeatist. It's kind of hard to describe.
No, I know
you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
It's like they felt defeatist, and they felt. I think so many people went into the election honestly thinking that Hillary Clinton. Now, look, never underestimate the Clinton machine, but I think that they went in there thinking that she was much more powerful and that she carried much more favor with her base than she actually did.
And Donald Trump wasn't the force that he was yet during CPAC the last time. I mean, I think he got 15% of the straw poll here. This really isn't Donald Trump's base when you think about Donald Trump's base.
No, this is not his base at all.
This is Ted Cruz's base.
But the point, and you're right about that, and I find that interesting. This is Cruz's base. This is Mike Lee's base. But this is the reality. you in the primary is like what I said there. Because I was critical of Trump during the primary. I was critical of Cruz, too. I was really critical of Romney in 2012. I mean, I don't hold back, but I think that that's your responsibility.
That's right.
If the left, and this is why I find this so important, the people who are in the middle, the independents who are not nerds like us, they don't trust what the left says about our candidates. But at the same time, they don't necessarily trust the good things that we say about our candidates because they think, okay, well, they're biased, which is why I think it's incredibly important that you give credit where it's due, and when you constructively criticize, that's the point. But the big thing is, you don't, if it's not a criticism that does not get you towards your end goal, why do it? If it's not a fight that does not push you towards your end goal, why would you engage in that fight?
You know what's interesting is, so you host a conservative talk show. You have your conservative videos and come on NRATV. I have a conservative talk show and do NRATV. I was with another conservative talk show host at a luncheon for conservatives, and a Democratic senator from Texas walked in. His name was Royce West. Very, very big liberal. Nice guy, but just wildly misguided. And he says, what do you guys all get together and you yuck it up? And we actually said, no. We actually disagree on a lot of things. The three of us could sit here. We're all strong conservatives.
Absolutely.
There are plenty of things we disagree with about what the best policy might be, and that's the difference between conservative and liberalism, because they all just follow blindly like sheep.
If
Exactly.
You get off the reservation on abortion and you're a progressive Democrat, you're not a progressive Democrat anymore. And not only that, you don't have any friends anymore either. You don't have any friends anymore. You don't have any connections anymore. People who have known you for 35, 40 years, you express any kind of deviation from the party line, and you're unfriended, and you're not invited to parties anymore. And people who I hear stories all the time, Grant, from conservatives out in Hollywood. I was the best man at this guy's wedding, and he found out that I voted for Mitt Romney, and he says we're not friends anymore. We can never speak again. What kind of a diseased mind do you have to have politics take up that much of your space in your head and your heart?
Right.
They give up people you've known your entire life because they voted differently than you.
No, I agree.
I think you'll see that I'm and all of you too are happy to debate the issues
Absolutely.
with anybody in an easy, informative manner without letting emotion take over. But liberals can't seem to have that happen, and I experienced that in my own family. I've got sisters. One sister to say, really, that just, I mean, she just cannot understand any of it, and you can't even have a conversation with her.
Right. No, I know. Well, all of my family, I'm sort of it's weird. I think up until this election, I was sort of the black sheep in my family because I have one other cousin. And, I mean, we're a huge family. I mean, huge. I have like 33 cousins. So it's a big family.
Right.
Me and one other. It was only us that think the way that I do.
Right.
And so when I first went back as a conservative to my family for Thanksgiving, I was not allowed to sit at the table with my grandma and grandpa. I sat at the little kids' table because I had a Republican bumper sticker on my car when I drove down. And my family, like with their cigarettes hanging out their mouths, and they saw my car pull in and they went, "Girl, what you got on your car?" And they could not even believe it. And yeah, it was weird. They don't talk about what I do. It's like I have, and I'm just going to be out with it, I have like drug addicts in my family that get more grace than I do. I'll be honest with you.
No, it's true.
If I was stripping and selling meth, they would have more, there would be more acceptance.
Because we believe that they're mistaken and they think that we're evil. And the reason they have to lock her out and put her at another table is because if your entire political and economic view is dependent on things that aren't real, you cannot have any light coming into that room. Everything has to reinforce everything else. You've got to have this echo chamber, because if anybody presents a different opinion that makes sense, then the whole thing comes apart. And not only do you not have a philosophy, you don't have any friends anymore or family or anything.
You know, it was funny. Belgium TV just came up,
Yeah.
and I did an interview with Belgium TV. So you can
How did that
imagine how
go?
they feel about firearms. Well, I flipped it on them, right? So he comes out instantly, what do you think about 35,000 gun deaths? And I instantly flipped it on him, and he was at a loss when you talked about God-given rights, when you talked about the ability to defend yourself. I said, if I'm at a movie theater with your child and I'm armed and a shooter comes in, are you glad I'm with the child? They don't know how to answer.
No.
They do not know how to answer.
And they also don't. This is where facts are kind of useful with these people. Plano, Texas is probably the most heavily armed place in the world.
I think my street, my cul-de-sac pretty much is.
With the
too.
exception
I
of that
think,
one,
Dana,
which
your house. I know your husband.
We do
Oh, yeah.
we do a little set aside for you. But seriously, Plano, Texas, everybody in Plano, Texas is armed to the teeth. They've got rifles, they got spears, they got 22s, 45s, they got sharp rocks, they got broken glass.
Sharp rocks.
They're ready. And if you look at the murder rate, in Plano, Texas, which is the gun capital of the world, it is lower than it is in Belgium. It's lower than it is in Switzerland. It's lower than it is in New Zealand. You get that? The place with the most guns has a lower murder rate than any of those countries.
Yeah.
So the murder rate for America is a result of these urban hellholes that have been run by Democrats for a century or so.
Right.
Yeah. Dana, when you look at what you'd like to see come out of this, so say Saturday night, the conference is over and people are talking, what do you want people to be saying about CPAC 2017?
That there's unity and identity. That's one of the things I'd like to see. I'd also like to see a renewed effort to make sure that Congress, because everybody's focusing so much attention on the executive branch, nobody's sort of looking at what the House and Senate are doing. I don't want to see anybody walk away from just gutting Obamacare. I don't want people to walk away from the promises that have been made from a budget reform that doesn't include a consumption tax in addition to what we already do. There are a number of things that I would like to see renewed pressure on. I would like to see, hopefully, everybody can say, yeah, national reciprocity should be included in the first 100 days. We'd love to see Thai. That would be wonderful. So I hope that something like that, a renewed, a decided identity, because I know that people feel like, well, how are we defined? And you're defined by what you support. You already have a definition. You're defined by what you believe in and by the policies that you're supporting. You don't have that. You're already defined.
One of the things I'm going to take away from this as just genuinely good news is this giant divide that we had this time last year seems to be healing pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I mean, all of 2016 was very painful for me because people we've stood shoulder to shoulder to are now at absolute nuclear war with each other on the same side over Donald Trump, non-Donald Trump. But I've noticed since the election and certainly since the inauguration that these two camps are moving much closer together, that the conservative picks that he's made and the actions he's taken so far have really reinforced a lot of textbook conservatives' opinion of this guy.
I think that anyone who is pushing division at this point anymore, it's because they make money off of it.
Yeah, I think so too.
Absolutely. So here's what concerns me the most is for decades we have had politicians come to this conference, Republicans, and tell everybody walking the hall they're going to do one thing. Lord knows how long we heard that Obamacare was going to be repealed as soon as we took over the White House, and we're still waiting for that to happen. They will come here and tell everybody what they want to hear, and they'll go back to the halls of Congress not far from here, and the complete opposite will happen. And, we have a chance in history right now to go on the offensive, to really push through conservative principles and policies that will benefit everybody in America. And for some reason, you have establishment politicians that are sitting back and they are not acting. And the time to act is now. We have a chance. They better grab it and run.
No, this is it, because 3 seats are all Democrats need in order to take the majority in the Senate. 25 out of 33 races they're defending. And it's not beyond the realm of possibility to think that it will not happen. And if it doesn't happen in 2018, 2020.
We know we have 2 years. We probably have 4, but we know we've got 2 years. And it's not just a missed opportunity. It's initiative. Who's got the initiative here? Right. For the first time in my life, the conservatives have had the initiative. We're acting on them and we're not being acted upon. We're moving the ball and they're trying to catch up with us. And as long as we keep moving that ball, they're absolutely lost. But if we stop long enough for them to recruit, they're going to rebuild that narrative. They're going to start telling that story again and again and again about Donald Trump's corrupt. He's not legitimate. Oh, blah 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 blah. And if we don't keep moving, we're going to be in real trouble.
And conservatives and Republicans need to find a way to coexist under this tent, because out of all of the different factions on the right, the biggest friction is there. Your 80% friend is not your 20% enemy, as Reagan said. And people need to wake up to that, because I don't think that there are any conservative that can look at what's happened in like the first 35 or 36 days and say, oh, I don't like that. I mean, granted, you may not love everything, but you like about 90% of it.
Madison Gorsuch alone.
Learn how to win.
Yeah. The truth is, I'm guilty of that. I tell you, I get so angry at establishment Republicans who sit back, and I let it consume me at times, because I'm thinking we have this. But you are correct. There's certainly a better friend to me than the Nancy Pelosi's and Chuck Schumers of the world.
They're not just okay. I mean, Mattis for defense secretary, that alone is worth Trump victory.
I am like the biggest Mattis fan.
Me too. Enormous. And you got McMasters at National Security, and you've got DeVos. You couldn't ask for more conservative people. These are A-list picks, and we're getting all of them. And that, to me, took whatever concern I might have had, oh, maybe Donald Trump's a secret Democrat, or maybe Donald Trump. No, there's evidence now. He's made decisions.
Then he's the worst Democrat ever.
Okay. Great. I'll take that.
Be polite, be respectful, but be prepared to kill everyone you meet.
But have
a great line from Mattis. I mean, it doesn't get any better
Everything
than
that comes out of his mouth is a quote for history.
I'll tell you, my favorite is actually a little better than this. Right when the tide in Iraq was starting to turn and the surge was starting to work, Mattis went and talked to a bunch of Iraqi tribal leaders, and he basically came in there, very humble, genuinely humble, and he said, listen, I come to you in peace. I'm not bringing my artillery with you, and I'm begging you with a tear in my eye. If you F with me, I will kill you all.
Right.
And
he said, what they do here, they will write about. What we do here, they will write about for thousands of years.
And that's a language that they understand.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So what's on the agenda for you here now? Any more speaking engagements?
I do some meet and greets, and I'll have a couple of interviews in that, and then if there's any protesters, which I really disappointed in that, because I always look for trouble immediately.
Yeah, you and Andrew Breitbart, the only people I ever knew that looked for trouble. I miss him very much.
We would immediately get to a place and be like, okay, where can we go and get into a fight?
Right.
Like, where can this happen?
Do you remember when it might have been at CPAC where there was this a lot of people protesting Breitbart, and Andrew went out and got some roller skates and roller skated.
That was in L.A.
Was it?
Yeah, that was in L.A. And then he told everybody, would you like to go to Applebee's? Let's all go to Applebee's.
Do you know what? Do you remember what I told the young man here, the college kid?
Mm-hmm.
I said, as you go through life, learn to thrive off confrontation.
Yeah, it makes you fit.
And you don't have to attend every fight to which you're invited, but you do have to attend all the smart ones.
There you go. Very, very good. Very, very good.
That almost was like Mattis level. It's not quite, but
no, it's up there. Well, you need to drop a couple F-bombs and threaten to kill people, and you got a Mattis,
don't make me kill you.
A Mattis
and then that's
generator.
like gets it better. Yeah.
Can you imagine that 3 years ago, 2 years ago, 1 year ago, that we're talking about national reciprocity and things like legalizing suppressors in America, not legalizing, but make it easier to buy them. It is amazing how far we've come and how short a time it takes to get there, to talk about that. I mean, look, I know you carry, I carry, and I'm in Maryland, and I can't carry here. And this is a prime example. We say some controversial things. We all do.
I mean, heaven forbid. We say, like, Constitution.
Yeah,
it's scary.
but we don't lose our First Amendment rights when we come into Maryland, so why do we have to lose our Second Amendment rights?
And I had nothing to protect myself. Bill had a little too much to drink last night. I figured I was going to protect him. I got to protect him. I'm standing there next to him. I said, Bill, I got you. If anything
you guys
happens.
have cameras going when this happens? Please tell me.
I didn't have too much to drink. Everybody around me was not drinking enough.
I'm teasing.
We had a blast. We had an absolute blast, and it was fun being around people who get it. And you're right. The world has just changed so dramatically and so quickly. Sometimes I still can't believe it. We got it all. We've got it all. We got the presidency. We got the Congress. We got the courts.
I do wish that we would get. The suppressor situation. Because the arguments that I've seen against it from some of the anti-gun groups, how they say, well, Bill, how are you going to hear the bad guys coming? If they're shooting at you, you can hear them. But if they put that suppressor on, you can't hear it. By the time you hear it,
you know why? The reason they say this is because they are so ignorant of the facts that they think that a suppressor works like it used to on Man from U.N.C.L.E.,
Yes.
That's what they think.
It's not like that.
No, it's nothing like that. And that's what they think. It's like they don't know anything about anything. You know what? Here's what's interesting about this, Dana. As they get pushed more and more into a corner, they get more and more ridiculous.
Yes.
You were talking about the Fourth Circuit Court a minute ago.
Oh my gosh.
The definition.
Dumbest ruling. Dumbest ruling ever. Did you read this?
Yes. When you take that to the American people and you say the definition of whether you can have a weapon or not is if it's something that might be useful in war, then you can't have it.
Well, on page 9 they were saying if it's like an M16. Because they were trying to, they bastardized Heller in their decision. They bastardized Heller, and they were saying, well, Heller made mention of an M16, so we're saying that if it's like an M16, my youngest son has a pellet gun that looks like an M16.
Yeah.
Is that because it looks like? Is that an assault weapon?
And I'd rather have a pellet gun than nothing if I was in combat. If I had a choice of a pellet gun or nothing.
There's so many things wrong with that ruling, and so many things that they misunderstood about the advent of the AR-15 and everything else.
That's my point, though. They are now starting to look so ridiculous, don't you think, Rand? When they say, well, if the weapon might be useful in wartime, you can't have it. What kind of idiot says something like that?
It's absolutely ridiculous, and it has nothing to do with the Constitution said nothing about weapons of war in them. And so what I would say is that the liberals need to wake up to reality, and that gun owners in America are some of the most responsible people
Of course they are.
on earth. Gun owners in America are the most responsible people on earth.
You know who would talk about that Fourth Circuit Court ruling? Because aren't you going to be talking to Senator Cruz coming up?
Yes, hopefully.
Because he filed
I
an
think he
amicus
may be on his
brief.
way here.
Well, if you want, I can fly out like a spider monkey and grab his
Grab
ankle.
him.
But because he filed the amicus brief in Heller, in the Heller decision, and he was also very vocal about the Otis McDonald fight, the handgun ban in Chicago. And I'm very interested in hearing what he thinks about the Fourth Circuit Court's logic and the reasoning that they had for that, because that's something, Grant, that's going to go towards the Supreme Court. This is why having that balance of power, because Gorsuch is great, he's an originalist like Scalia, it doesn't change the balance of power. Let's be honest about it.
And you and I talked about, one, the importance of the Supreme Court, but we talk about activist judges all the time. So when you get to the heart of this ruling, what this was activist judges putting their own beliefs into law, and they usurp the duties of Congress, our rights, for their own beliefs. And they live in you want to talk about an alternative reality.
Right.
They are the ones living there.
Ted said that the Fourth Circuit decision, and the Ninth for that matter, against the immigration executive order, he said they were utterly lawless. He said that at no point during those decisions was a statute ever quoted, no precedent, nothing. It's simply, I don't like this, so there you go. And this is how they're going to fight. And I think that the more they do this, the more the American people are going to realize that they're just kind of barking mad.
So
exactly.
Now, one of the problems that Donald Trump will face is when you talk about appointing judges across America, senators have to approve those judges. So that means liberal senators still have the right to veto a judge offered up by a Republican president in Donald Trump. So they keep going back to Robart when we see that ruling about his immigration ban, and they say, oh, well, that was a Bush supporter. I mean, a Bush appointee.
Right.
Well, Bush appointed that judge in a state like Washington where he had to have the approval of Democratic senators. So just because it's an appointee doesn't mean all of a sudden we are going to change the balance of these courts and all of a sudden we're going to have true constitutionalists on every court. That is not going to happen.
Exactly. No, and for that reason that a lot of people that you just described, a lot of people are not familiar with, that's how that process works. That's how those judges come to be, and that you have to pick from the pool that comes up in that state. And if it's, you have Democrats choosing it, you're going to get Democrats.
And you know who's not aware of it? The media.
Well,
they were first to say it's a Bush appointee.
My understanding is that the Constitution says that at any point the Congress can simply declare the entire Ninth Circuit, no, you're all fired.
No,
you're absolutely
well, there is
fired.
legislation. I know that they've been trying to push to divide that, because back when it was created, this was like, what was this, back in the 40s, where there were so few people that were out there in that particular district, because it goes all the way out to Guam, for crying out loud. There's no reason it needs to be that big. They can divide it up and create, I think, a 12th circuit? I think that's what they were talking about doing with it.
And so Congress does control how the courts are set up. If Congress wanted
that's what we need to push for.
Congress could simply say to everybody on the Ninth Circuit, thank you for your service, you're done.
Right.
And they have the power to do that.
They do.
Right.
They have the power to completely rework the entire criminal justice system if they wanted to.
Yeah.
Would love that.
Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah, now,
I doubt they ever have the guts to go.
You were saying about this all day today. I mean, if we fought as long as we did for 8 years and all that we went through, only to find ourselves with a Republican president, a Republican Senate, a Republican House, and nothing gets done, then that is, where do you go from there?
I agree.
Well, we've seen Wayne LaPierre come out, and he's a friend of yours, and boy, he spells it out. It doesn't need very long to spell it out about the time is now, go on the offensive. Yeah. He needs about 30 seconds, and that man gets his message across.
He sure does.
He does. The original mic dropper.
He is, isn't he? So I believe we're waiting for Ted Cruz to come through. It is interesting. We haven't talked about this today. Facebook has a presence here. Do you remember last year?
Yeah.
Facebook
did
not have any presence here. They didn't give any money to this conference last year. Then they called the big meeting with conservatives.
Is this a result of that?
I believe this is a result of that, and I believe they gave about $120,000 this year.
But they got so slammed by people who were so angry that conservatives were meeting with them. That's what I don't get. You cannot react that way. We have to be able to meet and talk with people who disagree with us, and we have to be able to compete on the battlefield of ideas. We cannot sequester ourselves away and think that we're only going to preach to the choir. Choir's the only people we're going to talk to, only people we're going to preach to. This is a choir right here. We're not going to get outside this choir. That's not how it works.
Were you part of that meeting at all? No,
I was not.
So would you have gone if you were invited?
Oh, of course. I mean, who wouldn't? I mean, I never ever will not go and miss an opportunity to plant a seed somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
The worst sort of evangelist is the one who doesn't go out and evangelize. You have to go out and do that.
And I tell conservative leaders to don't be afraid of the likes of MSNBC or CNN, that the most important place that they can
Record
go
everything.
on, maybe, the most important place they can go on are those outlets, because those are people you will be talking to that aren't normally getting the message that they need to hear.
Right.
And so I know you're a big contributor to Fox News, and I love Fox News, and I watch them all the time. But
I go on CNN too.
Well, that's the place really you need to spend all the time, because the people watching CNN.
HBO.
And around with Bill Maher, how did that go? Did he treat you well?
Yeah, it did. He tried to call me a teabagger, and I said, well, you know what that means, right? You're the baggee.
Oh, God.
Sorry.
Yeah, no.
But still, I mean, it needed to be said.
No,
I was like, I mean, if you're all right being in that position,
right.
That's on you, dude.
Oh, I'm not even going to ask my follow-up question.
Got to kick away their
skip the follow-up.
Got to kick away their unearned moral superiority, and if you can mock them, they're finished. Whenever I argue with a progressive, the first thing I do, there's so many reasonable, rational things that you can present in a counter-argument, but that's not what I do at all. I go to what part of this thing is he saying that makes him smarter than me and better than me, and then I just go right after it. So there's a racist. You're the ones whose policies have destroyed Black America. You're the ones who have had a vote plantation more pernicious than the entire slavery plantation system in the South. The Democratic Party left the Union to become the Confederacy. You don't get to stand there above me and tell me what a racist I am when it's your policies that are destroying these people's lives. It's you who are telling them they have to think the way their skin is colored, and not me. And when you hit them in that unearned moral superiority, that virtue signaling, they just crumple like a little...
No, I agree. I totally agree. They can't handle that.
One of the things that I often say is that it's important to listen to the other side. Not that you're gonna
you need
go
to know
to
what
the other
they're
side,
saying.
but you need to know what they're saying. And oftentimes, well, maybe not oftentimes, but every now and then, you might come away with a piece of information that teaches you something. I can't remember. I was one of you two that we talked about this on my show. So when I was in college, Gloria Steinem came to speak at my school. Huge feminist, the complete opposite side. But I said, you know what? I'm going to go listen to this woman speak. Her entire speech was useless to me, except one line. She said there are no mistakes in advertising. And I'll never forget that line.
It wasn't even hers. But
was it? All right. Well, so she jacked the line. But anyway, I walked away and I learned something. And so I go listen to the other side. Liberals here do not listen. They do not. They can't keep their mouths shut to just, hey, let's be respectful. Let's listen, see what they have to say, without throwing rocks at them.
And if they have a compelling case that's backed up by fact and argument, I will change my mind. I would rather be right than consistent.
Yeah.
If it turns out that I'm wrong about something and somebody has a compelling argument, I will move. And that is the essence of intellectual integrity.
And that gets down to some of these individuals are more concerned about winning an argument than they are about being correct on principle. And that's what's unfortunate.